This car gets a lot of attention. Everywhere I go, people come up to me and talk to me about it. Often they ask the same questions. Questions like, does it have the Viper engine? And do you know why I pulled you over? But a lot of people want to know if I've taken it off-road. And the answer is, yes, I have taken it off-road a few times. And it's great. It's mostly great. The stuff I did to it is great. All the Dodge stuff, not so great. But this car was never originally designed to be an off-road vehicle. It has some truck parts. The engine is kind of based on a truck engine. But the thing about the Viper, at least the first two generations, is that they are basically kit cars. Dodge made these with pretty much no budget. The parts are cheap, the development was hasty, and the durability testing was minimal. So obviously it's not going to be the best platform to tear down washed out dirt roads or do donuts in the sand. It has limitations, and I am finding all of them. A few weeks ago, some friends and I decided to make a trip from Jawbone Canyon, north of Palmdale, California, through the desert and up into the southern end of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Desert driving, dirt roads, fire roads, washed out hill climbs, all perfect wheeling for a proper off-road vehicle. A proper off-road vehicle is a body-on-frame design, a stiff ladder frame with a separate body bolted on top. The Viper is more of a body-around frame. I think it's technically a space frame. It's not bad for this kind of thing. The tubes are thin wall, but the frame has two layers to pick up the lower and upper suspension points, and this spacing probably gives it a decent amount of bending stiffness. I'm sure it's not ideal for off-road, but it's not bad. The body parts attached to the frame, however, are not well attached. The roof squeaks while driving down a paved road, so off-road is just constantly squeaking and rattling. A GTS may have been a better choice for this. Also, I could remove the roof. The biggest issue, however, is also the biggest part on the car, the hood. The hood is giant, and it's really only gently constrained in 4 places, 2 latches in the front and 2 of these hook things in the back. When driving off-road, especially on rough terrain, the whole hood flops around like a giant red pancake. This is a problem. There are 2 reasons this is a problem. One is that the paint on the hood is not as flexible as the hood itself, and I've started to crack the paint in a few places. This happened on the front grille a while back and has been growing ever since, and I'm not sure how to stop it. It seems like a hard candy shell of paint on top of a flexible fiberglass hood, and at some point I expect chunks to start coming off. I noticed something really interesting while making this video. I just got a camera for my driveway that has infrared lights so you can see at night, and this section of the hood where it cracked shows up as a different shade in the infrared light. I thought it was condensation at first, so I took the camera down, and it's definitely different in this area, and it's much more obvious on these infrared cameras. If you look really closely, you can barely see it in normal daylight, and it does show up a little bit better on my iPhone camera, but much less so than the infrared cameras. I'm guessing this was damaged at some point and repainted with some red or clear coat that is almost unnoticeably different until you get just outside the visible wavelength into the infrared. If you've seen this before and you know what this is, leave a note in the comments. But for now, I'm going to assume this was repainted with a paint that's not as flexible as it's supposed to be. Or maybe I'm just putting this fiberglass hood through some torture test it was never designed for. Possibly both. The other problem with the hood is that it is close to other things, like doors and the front fascia, and when it moves around, it bangs into those things and chips off the paint. This is a bummer because the hood was pristine before this. I mean, it was pristine before I sawed chunks off to make the tires fit, but it was in really good shape, and it is getting banged up. I did fix this a bit by adjusting the springs on one of the rear mounts. This is a really weird setup. The hood is a clamshell, but it doesn't just hinge at the front. After you lower the rear, you have to slide the whole thing back and down, latching the front. The rear is held in place with this spring, which works fine on the road, but off-road, it doesn't constrain it enough. I might look into getting some hood pins or some other secure fastening feature on the hood in the future. I definitely need to do something. I also need to adjust the mounting of the front fascia to get rid of this awful panel gap. Another problem with the giant hood is that it's hard to see over. This is often a problem off-roading when cresting hills, but it's especially bad in the Viper with its low seat and long hood. In the process of making this video, Wolfbox reached out to me about sponsoring a video, and I told them that their timing was impeccable. I have a Wolfbox rear view camera in my van, and I had another one in that RV that I sent to the bottom of a ravine, and I really like both of them. They now have a rear view camera with an extra camera for the front bumper, the G900 Tripro. This is exactly what I needed for this car. It comes with 3 cameras, one behind the mirror, one for the rear bumper, and one for the front bumper, so I can see and record everything. The front camera helps with off-road driving, but also just parking this thing with its obnoxiously long hood. The front and rear are IP67 certified for dust and water resistance, which is excellent for the kind of driving that I do. All three cameras support HDR recording, so night vision is excellent. You can swipe to easily switch between the front bumper, and rear bumper cameras, or have a split screen mode that shows you everything. It also comes with Wi-Fi, so you can easily download your videos to your phone. I wish I had this before I went on this drive. It would have made making this whole video so much easier. Here's a secret about that front bumper camera. You don't have to use it on your front bumper. I upgraded the Wolf box in my van to the G900, and instead of using that camera for the front bumper, I doubled up on rear cameras. They're both mounted up high, so one of them can easily see the trailer and everything behind it, and now I have a second one just to make it easy to line up the trailer hitch to the trailer, which I do a lot. Anyway, thanks to Wolfbox for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description to check out the Black Friday deals going on now. The Viper didn't come with a cabin air filter. This is not a problem for most Viper drivers who are sticking to the pavement, but it is a big problem for me. The cabin gets very hot, what with that giant inefficient engine up front, and so you pretty much always need the air conditioning on. And off-road, that just blasts dust directly at my face, which is maybe partly my fault. I designed a cage to be 3D printed that will hold some filter material and go just above the squirrel cage, but as I was designing this, I realized it looked like a pod filter, so I checked to see if there was one that happened to be the right size, and sure enough, this one, this part number, is the exact fit to snugly stick in the blower fan inlet. It is just tall enough to be gently squeezed into place with the lid on, so for all of you out there looking for a cabin air filter for your off-road Gen 1 or 2 Viper, you're welcome. Speaking of air conditioning, this car is a lot nicer to drive with the rear glass removed, but I like to keep it in when I'm not driving so that I don't have critters living in my car. You can fold it down and it will stay attached with these snaps and it will fit in the trunk, but with off-road driving, I expect it to break in both of these situations. So here's what I did. I took out the window, scanned it, and catted up a part, and then sent it to Send Cut Send to cut it out of Lexan for me. I printed up the plastic parts for the flaps at the bottom, and I'm going to swap over the locks. Once the Lexan arrives, I can assemble it all and then not worry about shattering it while driving. It might get scratched up after a while, but a Lexan replacement isn't too expensive. The fuel tank is not properly sized for a long off-road adventure. It's pretty small. I might install a small extra fuel tank in the trunk at some point, but I currently have a more pressing issue with the fuel, and that is the gauge. It always shows somewhere near half full, no matter how full the tank is. I might be able to just disassemble the fuel sending unit and clean it up, and I might do that because a replacement is over $200. Though I bet this little part is basically the same in every Chrysler car made for the entire 1990s, so I might just get one from a Dodge minivan and try to make that work. I have a spare tire carrier for this car that mounts on the hitch receiver. I can clamp it in to keep it from flopping all around, but it still kind of flops all around, especially after it bounces around for a bit and loosens up. It's not great, but it is good enough. This is probably one of those things that is just going to be imperfect. These tires, though, are great for off-road and actually pretty good on-road considering they are not even remotely designed for a 450 horsepower rear-wheel drive car. One of my favorite things about this rig is that you can turn it with the throttle. Just a little bit of steering input and hit the throttle and it just rotates right around. So much fun. A power steering leak started shortly after I returned from this trip. It was a little challenging to find out where this was coming from because I was looking at all the connections and components, expecting it to be at a hose cramp or a cracked reservoir or a leaky fitting, but it's actually coming from the hose. It's just leaking out of the side of the hose. I thought this was weird, but I remembered that I tilted the whole engine and transmission back a bit to line the drive shaft up better with the rear axle. And since the engine mounts are in the middle of the engine, this results in the front of the engine being higher than when it was when it started. This means there is way less slack in the power steering hose, so when driving off-road, shaking the whole car and engine around, the power steering hose was getting stretched to the point of failure. Removing the hose is a bit of a pain, but there is a special tool you can use to make it easier. Probably should be wearing gloves for this. No wonder my hands are always so messed up. One of the cool things about living in Southern California is that any weird thing you're doing on your car, there is a company not too far away that specializes in that exact thing. So I had a custom power steering line made, and I just need to install it. I had another problem that fortunately occurred at home after I returned. I locked the keys in the car. I have spare keys, but I don't have a spare key fob, and this car does not have actual physical locks. There are no keyholes on the outside to unlock the doors, and there's not even a locking mechanism inside the door. The doors open electronically. When you press this button or pull this lever, it sends a signal to a computer. If the car is unlocked, then the latch releases. If it's locked, then nothing happens. Again, I'm certain this was done to save money. There is a key to remove the rear glass, and with that out of the way, you can reach in and get to the emergency release. But my key for the rear glass is on the keychain with the key fob, so I had to pry open the window and fish out the keys with a piece of welding wire with a hook on the end. I didn't get video of this because my phone was also in the car. So next I will be making a copy of the rear window key. Really wish they would have just put a lock on the door like a normal car company. This car has no cup holders, and while that may seem like a nitpicking thing, I do like to have water on a long desert drive, and it's kind of a hassle to have a water bottle rolling around on your floorboard. Apparently, back in the late 80s, the Chrysler Corporation was not winning many awards, and Road & Track gave Chrysler a cup holder award for its minivans. This incensed the CEO, Lee Iacocca, who decided the Viper would have no cup holders. I don't believe this story. Everything about the first Vipers was low budget. Every component that could come from another Chrysler car came from the parts bin. They spent as little money on this thing as possible, and even something as simple as a cup holder has a development and production cost. The Viper doesn't have a cup holder because it was cheaper to not have a cup holder. You can buy a cup holder kit for the Viper, which is just a hole saw and a cup holder, but I own a hole saw, several actually, and I hate this aluminum ring on here. I don't know why the Viper attracts so many people who like all these tacky accessories. They're all so bad. I prefer my cup holder to blend in. So I 3D scanned my center console with and without the plastic. Then I designed a cup holder that would sink neatly into the pocket for the parking brake. The console is not flat, it has a wave to it, so I designed the top of the cup holder to follow that wave. I also added a clamping feature to the bottom so I can secure it in place. To get the hole drilled in the right location, I printed a drill template that follows the curve of the console and also has datums to the rear and the park brake cutout. After that, I printed the cup holder, installed it with its clamp in the console, and then installed that in the car. And there it is, a cup holder. That wasn't so hard, was it, Dodge? The other thing this car lacks is a place to mount a phone. I've been using one of these mounts that clamps into the CD tray on the aftermarket stereo that the previous owner installed. It works great on-road, but as soon as I go off-road, it just falls right out. A great solution for this is a stereo with Apple CarPlay, but weirdly, there are almost no good Apple CarPlay receivers that fit this narrow single-DIN slot. They're all the taller double-DIN. Porsche has one, but of course it's $1,500, has a tiny screen, and says Porsche on it. I know they make receivers that fit into a single DIN slot and have a larger screen, but I don't want one of those because I don't like the way they look and I don't want it to block my air vents and controls. The only good solution I found was from Walmart, which is not exactly the quality level I'm looking for, but it does work. Installing the new stereo should be pretty quick and easy. The center part of the dash pops off and you can take out 2 screws to get the old radio out. Unfortunately, the old radio had an amplifier in the back and the speakers came from that, so instead of just plugging into the existing harness, I had to tie into the harness wires going to the doors and run those back to the radio. But to do that, I had to remove the entire dash cover, which was actually nice because that made it easy to clean the dust off. Unfortunately, I can't get to the rear speakers until I remove the seat belts since they go through the plastic part that holds the speakers. I can't get the seat belts off unless I remove the seats, and oh no, I've disassembled the entire interior. This did give me a chance to do a couple of things I've been wanting to do. The previous owner had swapped in plastic from a different Viper that had 2 speakers and no glove box. I would like a glove box. Fortunately, he gave me the old plastic when I bought the car, so this was a good opportunity to put that back in. And now I have a place for my insurance and registration and gloves, I guess. The other thing I wanted to do was swap the seats. Another thing the previous owner did was put a lowering bracket on the driver's seat so it sits about an inch lower. It's just a couple of strips of metal replacing the risers. I don't like it. It sits too low, especially for off-road. I can't swap the seats because the seatbelt guides are only affixed to one side, so I swapped over the seat rails from side to side and then reinstalled the seats. Also, this car is missing one of the seatbelt guides and they're like $150 for a piece of plastic, but of course I have a machine that makes anything plastic. So I drew one up in CAD and printed it out of solid ABS at a cost of 79 cents, saving me about $150. I found an interesting thing in here while I was messing around. I broke one of the tabs for the headlight switch. I could probably glue it back, but here's the deal with Viper parts. Half of them are bespoke and very expensive, like the seatbelt guides, and the other half are on 200 Chrysler vehicles and cost like $8. The headlight switch is from a Ford. It still has the Ford logo on it. You'll see this sometimes where a parts supplier will sell the same part to different companies, but Dodge didn't even spend the money to remove the Ford logo from the injection molding tool. The Viper really is an impressive example of insanely low development cost. Anyway, I cleaned up the rest of the interior since it was super dirty and put it all back together, and after 3 solid days of disassembling and reassembling a Viper, I had solved the problem of the flimsy phone mount. There are a couple of things that went wrong on the off-roading trip that I haven't fixed yet. One is the alignment. When I last got the alignment done on this car, the turnbuckles for the toe adjustment had to be cranked all the way in. It was barely within spec, but there was no more adjustment. Well, after banging around off-road, the alignment got tweaked a little and now it needs to be fixed. But before I do that, I'm going to have to remove these turnbuckles and shorten them by at least a couple of threads. I'm still using the stock Viper brakes in the front, which are really just terrible brakes, like dangerously bad. I drew up a bracket to mount some appropriately sized brakes, but I haven't gotten around to that yet. I have a feeling this will be a regular pattern. I will take this car off-road, problems will crop up, and I will spend a week fixing all the new stuff. Eventually, it will be an amazing off-road car. Or just broken. Probably somewhere in the middle. We did make it all the way to Lake Isabella, over 9,000 feet higher in elevation than where we started. We aired the tires back up and drove all the way back down on the paved road, the easy way. Even with the problems, the Viper was a total blast to drive. It is an imperfect vehicle for this kind of thing, but on the other hand, it is kind of the perfect vehicle for this kind of thing. Just be sure to bring gas money. Used to be that you had to impress people to get people to watch your show, but now all you have to do is impress the algorithm. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. It actually helps the channel a lot. And of course, all hail the algorithm.